Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another great conversation. Wise parents, wise kids. Great conversations to help you parent smarter. This is parent coach Janet Bonnin of Fine Tuned Families welcoming you to our summer series conversation. We believe that a flourishing family focuses on the 6 fundamentals of family well-being. The first is practicing unconditional love and support of each other. Second, strengthening parenting skills. Third, improving family communication. Fourth, creating resiliency in all family members. 5, helping our kids learn to think for themselves. And finally, fostering a lifelong passion for learning and inner growth. Today, we are sitting down for a wonderful conversation with Sarah Markowski. She's a MOPS mentor, a mother of 5, and many, many more things. In just a moment, we're going to welcome her and invite her to share a little bit about herself. Over the past few summers, Sarah's deployed a concept called the Yes Day, and we invited her into this conversation today to share a little bit about it. Also joining us is Angela Woodrow, my associate and dear friend. She is going to be helping manage some of the flow of what's going on because we're trying a new thing today called a Zoom interview or a Zoom meeting that allows us to use this wonderful video and some slides to share information with you. So, Angie, welcome to the call.
Thanks. Hi, Janet. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Sarah, let's move to you. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am an Air Force spouse, and we now live in Tucson. So I'm doing all my mothering in currently 116-degree heat, which is a challenge sometimes, but we have fun. I've got 5 kids, and as you can imagine, that keeps me quite busy. We like to say that we're very diversified. You know, we've got all kinds of things going on all the time. When I do have free time, I like to be quiet and still. You know, I like to write and read books. And as you can imagine, those moments are few and far between for me. But there's nothing that gives me more joy than being with my kids. So I'm happy to be here and talk about what we do in our home.
Fantastic. And you said 5 kids, and their ages are from what range?
The oldest is 17, then 13, then 12, 10, and 9.
Quite the range, and that also means quite the different amounts of things going on, quite a different variety of activities going on, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. And I've often said to my husband, I feel sometimes like I have a split personality because each of my 5 kids needs a different kind of parent, you know, and I've often found myself like turning to my youngest daughter and talking to her in, you know, the tone of voice that I would use to correct my middle son. And she just, of course, melts because she needs a different tone of voice, you know.
Absolutely. You want to have, in raising your kids, you want to have an umbrella of a parenting philosophy and parenting approach. But then within that, we've got to be able to tailor what we're doing to each of our children's personalities and temperaments, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's really key to them also developing a successful sense of self, because if I'm not forcing on them this rubber stamp idea, then they feel comfortable saying, well, actually, I want to do this differently, or I'm not interested in that. I'd rather try this. And when we kind of encourage that in them, they start to flourish a little bit more in that way too. So.
Wonderful. So let's jump into the conversation. I'm just going to ask you, what the heck is a Yes Day, and how did you find out about it?
So Yes Day, I found out about it ironically through a book that my son brought home from one of these scholastic book fairs that they have at school, which I am always saying no to. You know, they always want to take money and they want to bring home all these books that I'm like, you know, books based on movies. I'm like, there's no literary content to this kind of thing. But this was a day that I said, yes, you can take your pocket money, go pick out whatever you want. And so my son came home with this book called Yes Day. I think you had the cover in the slides. And I read through it with him, and it's very simple and very fun. It's just this idea that the kid wakes up and he knows it's yes day, which means every time he asks a question, the answer he knows will be yes. And of course, we enjoyed reading through it. But there was something inside me that was like, we need this in our lives, because I was in a season where I was feeling very, I'm going to say, burdened by my constant need for correction and discipline, and I perceived an inability to say yes, to give them permission. And so when I read this book, I thought, this is going to be a great sense of freedom for them, but also for me as a parent was going to give me a day that I could just press the reset button and say yes to everything that they asked. So that's kind of where the idea started.
Sounds fantastic. And as parents, we know our kids thrive within some structure, within some boundaries, within some limits. If there are none of all of that, they are running around trying to figure out how the world works and how their life should work. And it can actually cause kids stress not to have some loving boundaries and limits and structure. And yet, I can hear you saying, with the 5 kids and with so much going on in your life, you reach a point, sometimes you feel like all you're doing is saying, no, not this, and no, not that. And, I imagine.
Yeah, especially for me with 5, there were a couple of days that I got to the end of the day, and I said to my husband, I'm not sure that I said anything positive today. Mm-hmm. And, he was very encouraging, because he said, Sarah, it's not one kid hearing that all day long. It's you saying that to 5 different children. But it was a real burden on my heart, because I felt like here I am trying to stay home and fill them with as much love and encouragement and positive environment as I can. Mm-hmm. But I was feeling like I just was constantly saying, please put that down, step away from that, don't touch your brother, and so my whole day was this train of, I felt like negativity, and I feel like I needed to be released from that a little bit too.
Sounds fantastic. So, and here's this next slide there. You wanted to help your kids feel positive reinforcement, receiving permission to do some things. I would love to hear a little bit more about what a yes day looks like, how you go about setting it up.
So I knew that my kids were way smarter than I was. And so before I even talked to them about it, I knew that I was going to have some rules, and which seems counter, because you think this is the day you just give permission. But I knew they would ask some crazy questions. We lived in Korea at the time. And so I thought, someone's going to say, can we go visit Nan and Cappy? Which would mean getting on an airplane, leaving the peninsula, going back to the United States, and I was not going to have my day of yes foiled by, their crafty questions. And so I kind of sat down beforehand and said, what am I okay with saying yes to? So you can see on the slide, I was not okay with saying yes to purchasing everyone a brand new computer or an iPad or an iPod or whatever. So that was a rule. We couldn't leave the peninsula. I was not okay to saying yes to skipping anything we've already committed to. Like in our house, it's super important. You make a commitment, you follow through. So if they woke up and said, can I skip swim team? That was not going to fly. So that was one of the rules. You cannot come to me and say, can I have $500? That was going to be, you have to be more creative than that. We weren't going to get any new animals. We lived in like this 2,000 square foot apartment, and I just did not want them asking to, bring a menagerie home that day. And then, of course, nothing illegal or unsafe. We lived on the 4th floor, and I didn't want them saying, can I jump off the balcony? Which, for some of my kids would have been, they'd want the bed sheet and try, so I said, we're not.
I really think this could work, Mom. Let me just try this and, go. Yeah, I got to share real fast. when my husband was young, one of his cousins was his dear friend, and the young man decided at the age of 6 that he was going to fly to his grandparents' house across town, and he took a skateboard and some bricks and a board, and he sat on the roof, and he rolled down off the roof, and fortunately he landed in a bush, but he really thought he was going to fly.
Right. I have a couple like that, and so I was trying to preemptively get ahead of that one. So anyway, I came up with this list of rules, and I prayed over it because I didn't want it to seem like I was already sucking the joy out of the day, you know.
Absolutely.
I gave them a $10 spending limit because also I wanted to steer their thinking away from necessarily purchasing things that might make them happy, but just thinking about things they don't normally get to do, or places we don't normally get to go, things they don't normally get to eat. And so I wanted it to be more of an experience than, you know, a shopping trip kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So that was a couple of days that I spent preparing that. And I shared this with my friends when I did it. And I think it's really important for you to do that on your own terms. Like, I didn't expect anyone to adopt all of my rules. But I think it is good to examine, you know, what you're comfortable with. That's a love and logic concept as well, when you your kids' choices, but you have to be okay with them, you know, whichever choice they choose, you have to be okay with. So that's kind of where the rules came from. And it also allowed me to go into it knowing that whatever they asked, that I could truly say yes with no reservations, because I'd already kind of covered the bases that I would not be comfortable with. So.
And there is room for a lot of creative thinking around the structure. So if you would, it sounds like the rules kind of gave a framework, and then within that, man, there's a lot of choice and a lot of options or opportunities for creativity and thinking outside the box, right?
Absolutely. There was one example that I specifically thought of. The kids love to wear large t-shirts, like their dad's t-shirts, and big baggy pajama pants, and stuff them with pillows so that they look like sumo wrestlers. And I normally am like, take those off. You're stretching out all of your clothes, put the pillows back on the bed, you know. But that day, when they woke up and saw that fit into the rules, they were like, can we just be sumo wrestlers all day? And I was like, yes, you can.
So what are some examples of some of the things that you got to say yes to?
So, of course, there was can I have ice cream for breakfast? Yes. Followed by, you know, waffles and pancakes and everything. And I thought, let's see how long this lasts. We're going to still, you know, before we make it to lunch. But, we lived in an apartment, like I said, at the time, and they wanted to ride their scooters up and down the hallways. And so I said yes to that, you know, so long as none of the neighbors came and complained. And we went out to eat, you know, for every meal. Normally we go all the same place, but they all just asked for different things. And so I said, yes, we'll go to all these places and do whatever you guys want to. But it was more along the lines of those things like the sumo wrestling. They wanted to build a fort across the whole living room, you know, things like that. Craft projects that I'm normally like, it's a little messy for today. You know, can we get out all the craft projects? Yes, you can, you know. So it was really fun. It was a fun day. It was messy, but I was okay with that because I knew the next day would be back into normal life. So I could deal with that for 24 hours. So.
I would imagine there was also a lot of laughter and high spirits through the day because of getting so many yeses and being able to do so many things.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. In fact, it's at one point, I think that we had reached this peak, you know, where they had asked for all this stuff in the morning and they were almost getting fatigued, you know, from just experiencing everything they wanted to experience. And so our youngest said, can I watch a movie? You know, and I said, yes, you can watch a movie. And so she laid in the fort and watched a movie, but it was almost like she needed just a little reprieve from all of the yes and all of the excitement.
And all of the energy.
Right. Yeah. Right. For sure.
So Angie, can you back up one slide? I was wondering if there was something else there that to prepare for the yes day. Okay, so what are some of the things that you did and a parent interested in having a yes day would do to prepare it and make sure it's a success?
I think, again, the rules were probably the biggest part of that for me. And then obviously it's different now that we're back in the United States. When we lived in Korea, we were on a small base. And so a lot of our activities were we could walk to. It didn't require a lot of logistics for me. But parents here in the States that's an additional consideration. And I've discovered that since being back, especially if you have kids who can't drive themselves yet. I think the rules, clarifying what I was okay with, what I wasn't okay with, praying that, again, just bringing God into that day, that he'd be glorified, and that that the kids felt empowered and loved, but also that I was able to connect to him and also take that day, that energy like you talked about, and take it forward from that day. Because obviously this is not a sustainable life plan. You can't have yes day every day.
No,
however, that joy that's created in that period of time can be carried out. And it's funny because after we had yes day, they were asking the next week, oh, when do we have yes day again? And I said, okay, first of all, you don't decide when yes day is, I decide that. And I'm probably not going to tell you when it's coming, and we probably won't have this more than maybe twice a year kind of thing. But it was fun to see them excited about it and to love it as much as I did. So
wonderful. So several things come up for me here. So it sounds like even for your family, the rules for Yes Day are going to evolve because of where you may be living, or in another case, as your children mature, maybe some of the rules are no longer necessary, right? So some of that is happening as you're going, and there is the opportunity to offer it more than once and kind of keep some of that positive energy going, right?
Absolutely.
The other thing I would wonder about is some of the things that happen during Yes Day, you look at it afterwards and you think, well, gosh, it was reasonably safe. It was a reasonable request. They can do that outside of Yes Day. So maybe some of the ideas infuse the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's a part of my parenting that I've been super intentional about, and it comes from a great friend of mine who said, Sarah, you have to make time in your life for interruptions. And I think sometimes as a parent, I get so consumed with my to-do list, whether it's get the laundry done and do the dishes and make sure the dinner is ready, or shuttle this kid here and then go pick this kid up, or be at church at this time for this event, that when they come to me with those fun and spontaneous things, I often say, oh, no, we don't have time for that. We don't have time for you to be a sumo wrestler, or I don't have time to build a fort with you right now. Or even now we live in a house with a pool and the kids say, why don't you come and swim with us? And a lot of times I find myself saying, no, I've got to finish this. And the point really is that they're more important. And I have to remember that giving them 20 or 30 minutes of my full undivided attention satisfies them in a way that I never could if I said, just hang on a second, I'll be right there, or if I was trying to do my thing simultaneously while trying to entertain them. They get it that I'm divided and that I'm not fully present for them. And so all of these fun things that come out of Yes Day certainly can be carried over as long as they're reasonable. But more important than the fact that they can be carried over is that I make time for them to be carried over.
So the Yes Day is not only benefiting your children, it's benefiting you as a mother, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And I feel like probably I benefit more from it. Of course, they have fun, doing Yes Day. Absolutely. But I don't think they know the power of it, really, for our family. They won't appreciate that now. They won't probably until they're parents themselves and can look back and say, wow, that was a really cool thing. And it made mom a great mom, which I'm looking forward to when those words come out of their mouths.
So real quick, can you share one of your favorite Yes Day moments?
My hands down favorite moment, which I wrote on the slides. My oldest was, I think he was about 14, going freshman in high school. And he asked for nothing all day long. Nothing. He didn't even ask for crazy things to eat. He just was regular day. And I got to the middle of the day and I thought, something is up with this, because here I've given him basically carte blanche. I'm like, you can name it, buddy, and you can have it. And so I thought, something's coming down the pike that is going to be either awesome or really difficult to handle. And so I was kind of preparing myself for that. And we got to the end of the day and I was kind of, getting ready for bed. And he says to me, "Hey, Mom, can I get a Facebook account?"
Ooh.
And I was like, shoot. Because I said, I knew it wasn't in the rules. I had addressed nothing of that sort. Because he was a teenager and this is the way that all of the friends were communicating, this is what he most deeply desired. And I thought about it for a second, like, how can I get out of this, essentially? And I realized I can't. And I also realized I don't need to, because as long as I present him with reasonable guidelines for how we're going to operate the Facebook account and he agrees to that, then there's not anything really bad about saying yes to that. It also gave me an opportunity to kind of have some new conversations with him, like internet safety, what we talk about, what we don't talk about, what we post, what we don't post. So as hard as it was for me to acknowledge that he had outsmarted me, I said yes, and he got his Facebook account. And again, I kind of set up new rules and we had a new discussion about what that meant for him. And I mourned, the passing of his childhood, since he's now on social media. But it was a really cool moment because he recognized, like, he was clever and crafty and had outthought Mom, but in a way that wasn't deceptive, right? It was totally within the parameters of the day. And so he won, and I was happy to give him that victory. So
Excellent, excellent. So can you share with us where the book is and any resources that you want to suggest? Oh, very good question, real fast. Would you say yes to the Yes Day again, real quick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we've done it several other times. I try and do it at least once a year, and I recommend it to my friends. I think it's daunting for parents to think of a whole day of saying yes, but honestly, your kids, they pace themselves after a few hours and they recognize, I cannot eat Starburst all day and enjoy myself. Some of those natural consequences come in.
Right. Or they learn a lesson. If they overeat at the beginning of the day and end up with a stomach ache for a couple of hours, that impacts a huge chunk of their yes day.
Absolutely.
And so next time, maybe they'll remember, wait a minute, let me just kind of pace myself here.
Right. Yeah, because we all know as moms, we can talk and talk and talk all day. And we're like the teacher in the Charlie Brown show, wah, 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 wah,
Yeah.
And the kids have to learn it themselves in order for it to kind of stick inside of them. So Yes Day is a really safe place for parents and kids to learn. And so, yeah, absolutely. I give it to, I say every parent should try it at least once. And clearly this is for probably kids like 5 and up who have this concept of permission versus not permission and desire to have more control in that decision-making process.
That's fantastic. So the book, let's talk about that real fast, and resources.
So the book, I think you can probably get at Amazon or any place that sells books. It's super simple, and the kid asks only for reasonable things, which is why I was like, we're going to put a few more rules. He wants to stay up late. He wants ice cream for breakfast. But I thought, kids nowadays, they're way more creative and they have access to way more than what's in here. But it's a fun book, and it's really a great way to maybe present the idea to your kids. If you wanted to say, okay, here's this awesome book we have. Let's read the story. What do you guys think about doing this? If we did this, what should some of the rules be? And have that discussion with them. Yeah, so again, it's super simple. Probably your first or second grader could even read it, but it was a great springboard for us.
Well, and perhaps too, you get it ahead of time and you read it with your kids once or twice and say, let's be thinking about what this looks like for our family. Because then
Absolutely.
there's a great discussion that can be had around some of the framework that you establish with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final thoughts here?
No, I just think that bottom line is parenting is work, but it should be fun too. And this is a great way to kind of infuse that journey with some fun in a very measured way. You know, especially if you're a controlling parent, the type A, you just need to know that it's only going to last 12 hours. This is for you. So
thank you so much, Sarah. The Yes Day sounds fantastic. I wish I had heard of the concept when my kids were younger, because I know we would have been all over it. It just sounds powerful and fantastic in so many ways. Thank you for being our guest today.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
And Angie, thank you for being there in support of us, listening and kind of managing the PowerPoint slides for us. If you don't mind, let's go forward one and see what we got.
And I was also just going to say, if you Google Yes Day, there's actually a National Yes Day every year. And there's a couple of good blogs there. And I put that there in the resource slides as well. But who knew that, you know, it was a national movement.
That's right.
That's really great. That's really great. So I just want to tell Sarah and Angie, thank you again so much for being on the show. Sarah, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
And there's some resources. I want to invite everybody, watch out for more Wise Parents, Wise Kids conversations. You can connect with me through the website, finetunefamilies.com. For my Christian brothers and sisters, we have a website, familiesoftheway.com. I'm on Facebook. We've got a Facebook community. We've got Twitter. We've got LinkedIn and all that. And you can find out more at the website, finetunefamilies.com. Thank y'all so much for listening. And I just want to remind you, this is summertime. Find ways to say yes and find ways to really love your kids. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.